Pleased to be joined by the head coach of the Hawkeyes, Kirk Ferentz. Coach, there's been some changes here on your staff, and probably the most notable one, the one that's gotten the most attention, is your son Brian is now the offensive coordinator. As Gerry will attest, there are about 70,000 offensive coordinators in the stands every Saturday. So what's the biggest piece of advice that you've given him as he takes over what is a highly scrutinized job?
You know, he's been around the game for a while, so I think he knows there's always going to be voices outside. And typically, it's hard to please everybody. That's one thing you can't do. So you have to do what you think is best. And I think the good thing is that he's got a pretty good base of knowledge and expertise, but also, more importantly, we've got a great group of guys on the offensive staff. And so when we put a plan together, it's going to be a group plan. It won't just be his ideas totally, but it's like playing football. You rely on your teammates a little bit, and then you do what you think's best.
As you look at the entire team, is there one unit that needs to grow depth-wise more than another from now to the beginning of the year?
Yeah, I think if you look at our whole team right now, we're really young on the perimeter, both the secondary and then on offense, the receiver position. I would not include the running backs, but the receivers and secondary are probably the two things. And then, obviously, the quarterback situation. We got two guys in contention right now that are kind of dueling it out. And something that doesn't get talked a lot, but I'd also mention our kickers and punters, and that's, as you know, a huge part of football. Colizzi did a great job for us last year, and we were back and forth on the kickers, so that's another competition we're looking at.
Have you been able to address most of the questions that you may have had coming into this camp at this particular point?
So far we feel good. We're 13 practices into it, I guess, right now. So we're hardly, we don't know all the answers, and still a lot to be determined. But I think the guys have worked hard. For the most part, every day's been pretty productive. And, I think we're making progress. Things are starting to clear up a little bit. But, we'll use this next 8 or 10 workouts to really figure things out.
So, Coach, you've been through this obviously more than once with quarterbacks. What makes the decision? How do you take everything you've seen and say, okay, this guy's the starter? How does that work?
Yeah, you've been through this too, Gerry.
Yeah, not very well. That's why I'm asking.
I think one thing I've learned, sometimes it's really clear, and then other times it's not as clear. And we've had years where we've gone back and forth a little bit before we made a decision. Thinking about 2008, and then Ricky Stanzi kind of emerged out of that in October and did some great things for us, not only that year, but the next year as well as senior year. Then other years, like we knew in 2001 that Brad Banks was going to be our quarterback in 2002, and what a year he had in his only year of starting a major college football. What a story that was. So, sometimes it's really clear, sometimes it's not, and I think it's whatever the situation is, you just play it out as it presents itself, and the big thing is being fair to the people competing, and I think it's the only way to be fair to your football team too.
Coach, going into your 19th season, how have you evolved as a coach over that time as far as dealing with the players?
I don't know. I think you just, hopefully you're a little smarter as you get older. I'm not always sure about that. I think, the first thing is it's a miracle we survived the first year because things were a little tough that way. But we were making progress. We had great guys on the team back then. We weren't good enough to win enough games to make people happy, mostly ourselves. But the guys worked at it, and from day one, that's how it's been. So, the players haven't changed. They changed numbers, changed faces, all that type of thing. But the guys we get to work with, and I'll go back to my time here in the 80s, the 9 years I was here, the players that's what makes it special, and that hasn't changed. And I think the keys stay the same. You try to, pay attention to what's going on. You try to listen to the people involved, and you just try to do what's best for everybody. And that's, that's really how it works.
As long as we're in reflection mode a little bit here on the 19 years that you've been here, what are you most proud of in terms of the development of the program in that time?
A lot of things have happened, bricks and mortar-wise, obviously, this facility that we're sitting in right now. And that is important, but it's not the most important thing. But, the part's been enjoyable, just kind of like I said a minute ago. It's been the people, and, to have former players back. Colin Cole was back here for 5 days last week. Jordan Lomax over the weekend. We got Bob Sanders coming in this week. To have that connectivity and guys in the program feel comfortable coming back here and being part of the family. To me, that's the best part about sports. It always has been. So, I just feel really fortunate to be at a place where they allow you to, they don't panic every time something happens. We stub our toe a little bit. We go back to work, and it just gets down to that's part of life. You're always going to stub your toe. You're always going to face some hardships. What are you going to do about those things? And that's been the fun and most enjoyable part about this whole thing. But it all gets back to the people we work with.
Iowa head coach Kirk Ferentz. Thanks a lot, Coach.
Thanks very much. Thanks, guys.